And we're now live.
So Saadadden, I think somebody just said we were live.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're going to be cooking today, are you?
Yes, I am. I have the pleasure of cooking some Sudanese ful for you, which is a traditional breakfast dish usually served in Sudan, but not only Sudan, also in other local countries. Egypt is another one that springs to mind. So hopefully it's a simple dish. I'm not the best cook, as you all see as the hour goes on, but hopefully there's not much to get wrong.
Before you start cooking, Saadadden, I can see 112 and 113 on your cupboard doors. Does that mean that you've got 113 cupboards in your kitchen?
That's a great question. So I don't think so. My kitchen is definitely not that big. Maybe one day, but not now. So it's just the door numbers. So these are the people that live on my flat. And funnily enough, most of them aren't occupied. So there's only about 4 people that live on my floor, even. So more space for us, I suppose.
Right, okay. Is this at halls, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're at uni and you're cooking from your university halls. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully some of my flatmates taste test the food right at the end.
Okay. All right. I'll stop interrupting and I'll let you get on with it. Something seems to be happening, doesn't it? Oh, you're going to get on with cooking now, are you?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's do it. So, I've been informed to come up to the camera every now and then, right, to show you what I'm doing. So first of all, what I'm going to do is switch on the cooker. That's always a great place to start. So I'm gonna switch on the cooker, and we're gonna get some oil on the pan. To be fair, I don't know how I'm going to stretch out this very simple dish for that long. So we're just gonna go through the motions and hopefully, yeah, nothing goes wrong. So I'm putting some oil on the pan, as you can see, and heating it up gently. And I'm going to also cut up some garlic and put it on the pan as well, as I've been reliably informed to do by my mother.
So is it your mom that's taught you to cook?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Even if not explicitly, definitely by osmosis, watching her and helping her sometimes in those rare moments that I'm called in to action in the kitchen. I like to think I do a decent job.
All right. Okay. So what's your first kind of memories of food? What foods are important to you? Yeah. Tell us about Saadadden food.
So my father's Syrian and my mother's Sudanese. So my first memories of food would be from coming back from somewhere outside in the park playing football as a family, or maybe going for a barbecue outside in the park, and then returning home to some sort of meal that's ready and waiting for us. So there's a well-known Syrian dish called halawat al-jibn, which translates into sweet cheese, effectively, which is a really sweet dish. And I remember coming back from long days in the park, and it would be the thing I would always request my mum or dad to make. And so it was like a very full day if I came back home to find that on the kitchen table. So that's a memory that springs to mind straight away.
I remember when I was a youth worker, there was this boy, his name was Dean. He was one of 3 brothers, and we were having a kind of conversation either about playing or about food or something, and he said something similar. He said, you know, Michael, the best thing about being a boy. I said, what's the best thing about being a boy, Dean? He says that you go out and you play all day, and when you come home, your dinner's ready. You know? And so that idea of coming home to food, yeah.
Yeah. You don't realize, I mean, I certainly didn't realize it until I came to university. And when coming home, there's no food waiting for you unless you cook for yourself. So yeah, Dean's definitely right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite dish, Michael?
Do I have a favorite dish?
Yeah.
To cook or to eat?
Both.
At the moment, my favorite dish, at the moment, because it changes, but at the moment, it's definitely mutton and rice. Yeah, I kind of seem to be I don't know, I don't know, I've just got kind of constant urges to eat mutton. I went out, in fact, I went to a restaurant last night where I had all sorts of choice of things, and I ended up with mutton and rice. And I don't know why, I felt like I was being really boring, but it's just what I wanted to eat. So I like things like that. But I think my favorite eating times used to be on Sundays, because on Sundays, my mum used to push us out to go to church, to Sunday school. And but she would stay home and my dad would stay home. It was just the kids that had to go out to Sunday school. And but when we got home, we would have what we call dinner breakfast. Yeah, and I think the proper word for it now is probably brunch. But it was this kind of fusion of English breakfast that I really like. But it was like English breakfast with plantain and saltfish fritters and ackee and saltfish. And I just used to be able to just sit there because I got a big belly. I'm sitting down, but if I was standing up, you'd see. I just love eating. And it was just like, it just felt like mountains of food that we would just sit there and eat for ages, you know. And so I think my best eating times was eating dinner breakfast on Sundays after we got home from church. But then there's that thing again, isn't it? You go out and you come home to kind of prepared food. So, and that was definitely a part of it, to come home hungry and just to have just all of this food in front of me. Yeah.
I much prefer the name dinner breakfast to brunch, though, I have to say.
Yeah,
but what you said about saltfish fritters reminds me of a time me and my friends in school, Niall, we were doing work experience. And in my school, you had to do work experience in year 10 somewhere outside of school. And we didn't manage to find a place. So both of us, after the week, or they gave us a 2-week deadline, you have to find a shop or something to work in. We didn't find one. So the school sent us to this pupil referral unit in Tooting. And so me and him just found ourselves there. But like, they just had to get us busy doing something. And then around the corner, we went for lunch. And you know those sort of kitchens, they're not shops, they're just kitchens that chefs, like budding chefs, work out of. There was this man, I don't know how we chanced upon his kitchen, but we found it. It was just like a trailer. And he used to sell saltfish fritters, and they were the best thing we ever tasted. So for the rest of our work experience, we'd go and just meet up with this guy and just eat saltfish fritters every lunchtime.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, saltfish fritters. I love them. I love them. Yeah. And I make saltfish fritters a lot. If I'm kind of feeling peckish in the evening, I make saltfish fritters. And like I've even got to the stage now where my mum will eat my saltfish fritters from me. Because my mum don't like eating from people. And so yeah, no, I love saltfish fritters. They're what any food is my favorite food, you know, Saadadden. That's why I'm a fat man. I love eating. Yeah. And I love what I don't know as well. So tell me about this Sudanese dish, you know, because I love food. I love new tastes and new flavors in my mouth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this dish is very much a staple dish. The way I described it to Aisha when we were talking is something, the equivalent of a side dish that you'd get in any Sudanese restaurant. In the same way that when you walk into an Indian restaurant, you might just have poppadoms and mango chutney on the table just for standard. And if it's not there, then you know it's not really worth its salt. So this is the kind of standard starter that you'd get in any sort of Sudanese restaurant. And there are different variations of its mix. So there's an Egyptian style, which is pretty much identical to the Sudanese style of this dish. Which in English is fava beans, Fava. There's a Saudi Arabian style, there's a Yemeni style, there's loads of different countries that put their own spin on it. But this Sudanese dish is, it's very what's the word? You can kind of use it in a lot of ways. So I suppose everyone can kind of put their own spin on it. But what I tend to do is have a little bit of salad beside it, just to make it a bit more easy to sort of digest. But to be honest with you, Michael, I growing up, I'm not someone that was super taken to Sudanese food or Syrian food. So if I was outside with my friends, it would be very low down on the list of places I'd want to eat. Maybe it's because I've sort of, I don't know if it's the same, well, it sounds like it's not the same for you, but for me, it was always like, I can eat this at home. Why would I go out to a restaurant and eat this? Whether that's like Mediterranean food or Sudanese food. I much preferred things that were very different to what I would eat at home. So like Indian or Chinese or something like that. I suppose it's extension of being a Londoner. You're kind of you got that choice, that luxury of choice. So this dish, it comes in a tin. So I don't know if you see the tin. So this is the food, and what I've just strained it a bit, and then I'm just gonna pop it on the stove.
So these are you said that, what was it called? The thing you're scooping out?
Fava beans.
Fava beans. Yeah, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, fava beans. So if you can see that.
All right.
Yeah, they're fava beans. I'm just gonna smush it a bit as it heats up. Just so it's a bit softer in texture. But my Greece, right? We frequented a lot of different restaurants. So was that for you, like, or did you feel like you were in a good space, being able to sort of try all these different types of dishes, or were you like, would you go for the safe option when you went places like that?
What, when I go away?
Yeah.
No. When I go away, I try food.
You try food.
Yeah. When I go away, I try whatever. I try to work out what local people are eating, and try to have some of that. I was in Somalia this year. Yeah.
Okay.
And and I had camel for the first time, and camel burgers, and I didn't even know that people ate camel, but it tastes good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And camel milk, and so I will go to, whenever I've gone to different countries, I eat their food. Yeah. Interestingly though, the only place I didn't like the food was in China, and I love Chinese food in England. But actually, I didn't like Chinese food in China at all. I like to try things. I like to try new things. I'm not very good at trying to cook new things. So fava beans are a sort of broad bean, are they?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of Somali cuisine, I'm from Shepherd's Bush, or West London, and there's a big Somali population, and so there's some really good Somali restaurants.
I've been to
that I'm out. Yeah. There's one, I don't, whereabouts are you in London again, Michael?
In Southeast London.
Southeast. Okay. So,
Yeah.
because there's one in Tottenham or
Oh.
Bruce Grove called Brothers, which is really good. It's probably the most recent one I went to.
Oh, right. Okay. What, a Somali restaurant called
Yeah.
Brothers? Oh.
Yeah. Somali restaurant. Yeah. Very good. Super cheap as well. On that topic of being able to sort of tell whether a restaurant's is bona fide, when you walk into Brothers, they hand you a banana. So
All
you
right.
know it's for real, for real.
Somali people have this thing, isn't it? Because my wife is Somali, and
Yeah.
I actually didn't know until we got together, this kind of Somali thing with bananas and eating bananas with every meal and all of.
Yeah.
And I don't like bananas. I've never liked bananas. I don't like the smell of them. I don't like the taste of them. I don't like them anywhere near me, bananas. So it's been a weird thing. Yeah, but there's
So you did. So what are you saying for banana and rice? What are you rating out of 10?
no, I wouldn't eat it because I don't like bananas. Yeah,
Oh,
I literally, I don't eat bananas. I think that they're horrible things. I think it's a horrible flavor coming from a horrible smell in a horrible skin and a horrible shape. Yeah, no, I just don't like bananas. Yeah, but my wife has bananas with everything.
Green banana. Someone's asked green bananas ?
Oh, right. No, I eat green banana, but that's a different thing. Yeah. So, yeah, no, because Somalis ate what I call ripe bananas with everything. But so the bananas I would eat is green banana. I would eat plantain. Yeah, but I just don't like ripe bananas. So where are we now? You had some garlic. The last time I was up with you, you had some garlic in the frying pan with a little drop of oil.
Yeah.
And that you've added the beans to that?
Yeah, so the beans now are gently heating. I'm gonna add some flavors to them now. So some salt, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Just to spice it up a bit. And I've also got some eggs. So I'm gonna have some eggs just above. So I don't know if you've seen the picture. So I've got eggs boiling at the moment. The actual picture of the dish as Aisha posted on Instagram. So I'm gonna try and replicate that exact same picture, which is just to have eggs beside the fava beans as well.
Mm.
So that's what's cooking at the moment. And then we got some tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, because I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of the bigger, or I much prefer the small tomatoes, the cherry tomatoes, to the larger tomato.
Mm-hmm.
And some cucumber as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit of lemon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll cut that up as well and squeeze it. Michael, how many of these have you done so far?
Oh no, I think this is my second, but I've been watching them. Yeah. So this is my second.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
I really like the one that Leonie did with her mum. Yeah, just because it was really nice to see the play.
Oh yeah, that was wicked.
It was nice to see the play between Leonie and her mum, and just kind of nice to see the way that they were relating to each other. And of course, they had a great big massive kitchen. I've never seen such a big kitchen in my entire life. Yeah, and so, but it comes from being abroad and having space and land. You know, when you live in London, everything is kind of, you know, if you have a 12-foot room, you think you're in a big room.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that one. Yeah, I think that was my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, big up Leonie.
Mm-hmm.
Good peoples. So what's one dish, Michael, that you haven't had yet that you got your eye on?
I kind of would. I think about it as places I haven't been that I'd like to go to eat from, and so I've not been to Ethiopia. Yeah, I stopped there for like 5 hours on the way to Somalia, but I've not been to Ethiopia, and I'd like to go to Ethiopia and eat some Ethiopian food. I've been to a couple of Ethiopian restaurants in London. And so I kind of feel like I could really get into that into that food. Where else? And the other thing is I've been to, I watch, what's it called? Not Celebrity Cook, MasterChef. I watch MasterChef. And one day I would like to go to one, because these people make food look beautiful, yeah? And one day I'd like to go to one of these really fine dining restaurants. You know, so if there's anybody listening that would like to take me out to a kind of fine dining restaurant, I'd like to do that one day. Just so that I can say that I've done it, and just so that I can understand why half a handful of food can feel so important to people, you know? And the care that these people take in preparing it, and oh yeah, I'd love to go to a fine dining restaurant one day. I've never been to a fine dining restaurant. Yeah. I went to tea at the Savoy with Yvonne, who's one of the other directors of Ubele, but that just kind of, it was kind of we were in a special environment, but the food wasn't particularly interesting, like sandwiches. But I'd like to do some fine dining. So hang on, there's some thoughts coming up here. Will Saadadden's recipe be available afterwards?
That's hilarious. The idea of it being a recipe is funny for this. Yeah, it will be. Yes, is the short answer. I think I just feel like I just laugh because the term recipe is very grand.
Right. Oh, okay.
It's too grand for me, at least.
Right. Okay. That's a bit like having a recipe for corned beef hash or something, is it? It's just kind of, you have the list of things that you do to make it, you'd call it, rather than a recipe.
Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. So if you were having a dinner party, this is your big dinner party. Which 3 people would you invite, and who?
Wow. Okay. So I've been told by a friend, a reliable source, that whenever you are asked this question, you should never say the famous person you have in mind. So for example, you should never say Malcolm X or Winston Churchill. What you should instead say is someone close to Malcolm X or Winston Churchill, because they are more likely to give you a more revealing and perhaps honest insight into that person. So with that in mind, I would say a man called Dr. Sherman Jackson, who's a professor at an American university. He's a very interesting man. He's done a course recently, which for me really shaped the way I think now, called The History of Islam in Black America. Oh, so wow. I found that to be a really interesting course. And he traces the history of Americans from slavery to sort of post 9/11. So I would bring him because I think the way he thinks is really interesting and engaging. I'm thinking about someone from the UK now, and someone maybe more contemporary.
So before you
I would bring on.
Go on. No, I'm just really interested in this
No,
idea
no, go ahead.
that the history of Islam in Black America. And
Yeah,
so is this about how Islam and the kind of struggle against racism? I'm thinking about Malcolm X. I'm thinking about the Black Panther movement. Is this what that's about, or is this about what's that about? What's he
yeah,
talking about that?
yeah, yeah. That's definitely a huge part of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really so. It, I suppose in a sentence, if I was to relay it in a sentence, what he says is a large part of identity formation, or the way we view
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, is the way we feel like different, I don't know, ideas communicate truths to us and in our position.
Mm-hmm.
So the way in which I suppose, Nation of Islam, etc., and Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali come into it is that he says they sort of co-opted this idea of religion, which was different to perhaps the Orthodox understanding, but they did so in a way that communicated a message effectively to people in that context. So he calls these movements Proto-Islamic movements.
Mm-hmm.
And so he looks at people like Elijah Muhammad, Warith Deen Muhammad, etc., and looks at how they began as a merger of loads of different things. So like the church, they would read the Quran and the Bible in the same sermon, for example, because what was the most important thing wasn't necessarily the quote unquote religious substance. It was the ability of that religious, that message that is bigger than them to communicate effectively to their needs and wants, which was that we are not what we are told we are. We are more than this, and there's hope beyond this, and how that kind of transforms as time goes on.
Wow. Well, so there's a kind of whole recipe in itself for human, how we become human, who we are, and I suppose the thing that you called identity. But before you go on to tell us your second person, I've seen you doing things to that
Yeah,
pan that you haven't told us about. Tell
yeah.
us what's happening with that pan, and then come and tell us about your second person.
So this pan, I'm squeezing some lemon on it. So
Uh-huh.
that is literally, and I'm also applying some pressure to the fava beans so that they're a bit softer and smushed out, because I don't want them to be too tough.
Uh-huh.
And I think one thing that is, if you look at the photo that Aisha posted, it tends to be quite a bit softer to the
Uh-huh.
touch as maybe a bean would if you didn't smush it down. And that's because in Sudan, typically, if you're going into sort of a house in most of the areas, they would eat with their hands and not with a knife and fork. And I think that's a huge part of it. So there's like a particular technique using sort of three fingers. You might have seen it in Somalia. I imagine they have a similar thing with like these huge dishes,
Mm-hmm.
these huge pans that everyone kind of just gets stuck in and eats from. Um, yeah, I don't know. Did you eat with your hands in Somalia?
No, I mean, I must be really honest, Saadadden, is that I, I I don't find it comfortable to eat with my hands. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
and I don't know why, because there's no rhyme or reason to it. I suppose except that I've spent the past 58 years eating with a fork and a knife, and to do something other than that felt, yeah, I kind of felt as if I was trying to do something to fit in, and I kind of wanted to stop. I just wanted to enjoy the food, so I used a knife and fork. Hey, we got something going on here.
There you go. So it's nice and hot, and we're nearing the end of our cooking journey, because it's
Right.
about.
Okay. So who was your second person?
Do you know my second person? You can tell what kind of videos on YouTube I've been watching, but my second person would be Gary Neville.
Would be who?
Gary Neville,
What, the footballer
the
or the
footballer.
football
Well, he's now a
commentator?
pundit, but
Is
I think he's a really good pundit. I like the way he analyzes things. And I think for me, I grew up watching like a lot of Match of the Day with Gary Lineker and Alan Hansen. And I think for me, when I watch him, he's someone that when you watch, you're kind of like, well, how come no one was like this before? Like, how come no one went into this level of detail or sort of took it as seriously and went beyond catchphrases and cliches and things like that? And I think anyone that makes you think, how come it wasn't like this before, is someone I think worth thinking about.
You know, even I'm not really a football person, but even I am aware that Gary Neville brought something kind of different to talking about football and its place. You know, that it wasn't just whoa, but actually, you know, there was some kind of deep thinking going on there. I remember listening to a conversation between my son and his partner about football, and these are some proper sports people who were talking about knowing, I mean, this is stuff that you would know because you're probably a football person, but they'll be saying things like, why are they playing him up the left? He's right-footed. And they've got to, and all of this stuff that they know about the footballers. And I think, well, how do you know he's right-footed? You know, and all of this really, and it's kind of Gary Neville would talk in a really complicated way, an educated way about football. So I can see that. And your third person?
Yeah, but before I go on to my third, I would need to hear a couple from you. At least I would need to hear yours as well before I reveal mine.
I really haven't. I've never been asked it before. I've asked it a couple of times. Who'd be the first person I'd... Oh, there's too many people, you know, Saadadden, that I'd want at my thing. really.
Come on.
There's too many people. Let me think of somebody that I'd really like to have.
I'll let you think. While I squeeze these fava beans down, I'll let you think.
Okay, you squeeze down the fava beans. What do you mean when you say squeeze them down? Are you mushing them, or are you just...
Yeah, mushing them, but not all of them, and not so mushy, but I am, yeah.
Right, okay. And these got to be dead people or alive people?
Nah, both of mine are alive. So,
yeah.
Dead or alive.
I've I don't know why she comes to mind right now, but I've been thinking about this woman quite a lot. I think because I've been kind of thinking about my childhood quite a lot. And somebody who, the first person to make me go, oh, can that be music as well, was Joan Armatrading. I remember walking into this guy's house called Owen, who was kind of, I think I was about 14, but he was a man then, so he would have been at least like 22 or 23. So I would have thought of him as a real kind of, and he had Joan Armatrading playing. And I remember thinking it was a man. And I said, who's that man singing? And he said, that's not a man. And they kind of started laughing at me. And then there's kind of something about the way that Joan Armatrading has managed to carve out a space that's completely her own in kind of English music. And she's kind of very definitely a Black woman, but she has no sense, but people can't put her in any kind of pocket or bracket her or say that she's in anything. She's just Joan Armatrading. She's just kind of doing her thing. And so I like that kind of people who just don't fit. Yeah. And so for me, I would want Joan Armatrading at my dinner, just because I just think that I'm not really sure what she'll say or what she'll bring, and I hope she'll bring her guitar, because I'd like to learn. One of the things I'd really like to learn to do, so that when I retire, I'd like to play the guitar really well. I can strum some chords now and kind of hold a tune together, but I'd like to be a good guitarist. I'd like to spend my retirement somewhere hot just kind of playing the guitar. So I hope my body, my fingers, my head kind of allows me to do that. So Joan Armatrading would definitely have to be there, just because she's so different to everything. She's not a reggae artist, she's not a rock artist, she's not, she just does her own thing. She gets on stage and she don't have to wear dodgy clothes or dress up. She just you just feel like she just turns up as herself everywhere she goes. So she would be one of them. While you do the next thing to the beans, I'll think of a second one.
I'll get to mushing. You get to thinking.
So have you, what have you done now? You've mushed it down even some more.
Even some more, yeah. And I've added some pepper as well, just a touch. While the eggs are still boiling, but I think they're just about done. And I've also chopped up some tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, and cucumber as well. So that's ready to go on the side. And then the eggs, once they're done, I'll crack them open and then cut them in half and just put it on the side.
Those eggs have been boiling for a long time.
Yeah, they're pretty much done now, though. Yeah, they've.
Okay. And did you use chili? You've got no chilies. I'm kind of surprised there's no pepper going in there except for a little bit of black pepper at the beginning. I'm
not a huge fan of chili, to be fair.
Right. Okay. Is that you, or is that the dish, or is that what's that?
No. Sudanese people definitely use chili generally, but I don't think I inherited that.
Right.
From my mother, so I stay clear from it. I don't mind my food having a bit of flavor, but just to give you an insight, I would not usually order a hot dish at Nando's or the chicken.
Right.
Like that. Medium for me is my bar, so I don't go anywhere above that.
Yeah, I've come down from pepper when I was there was certainly something about I don't know, your kind of initiation into kind of manhoodness, which was, or for me anyway, about kind of how much pepper you could take. And so like I used to, I was one of those idiots that used to eat things much hotter than you should do. Just to kind of, but yeah, I don't do it so much anymore. But yeah, but I do have pepper in my food. I like having pepper in my food. I like it to have a bit of a kick.
All right, number 2, let's go.
Oh, it's my number 2. Sorry, I thought I'd gone from there.
Oh, no.
I suppose the other person would be somebody that nobody else would know, maybe, but that was really close to me for about 15 years. I used to have this job, and I used to have this person. She was like my supervisor, helped me think and talk about my work, but she wasn't my manager, and so she used to be called my non-managerial supervisor. And so I used to meet with Jerry about kind of once a month to talk about work, to talk about issues at work, to kind of think through stuff. And then I had a kind of massive disaster in my life, which is that my daughter was killed. And when I was kind of working out how to deal with that, I rang up Jerry and I said, "I'm really sorry, Jerry, but you're the person I've chosen to work this through with." And from that moment, actually, Jerry and we met every Friday morning at about 7 or 8 o'clock. and just a kind of place to do some thinking and to do some putting down of things and some picking up of things. And we worked together in that way for about 15 years. And then she died. But she would always, Jerry would always know what question to ask me to kind of, to force my thinking, to make me kind of take that next step. And so if I could have anybody at my dinner party with me and Joan Armatrading, I think that Jerry would definitely have to be there, because I think while she's been away, she's probably collected a whole pile of questions that I should have answered, that she could kind of lay before me at this dinner table. And then when she goes away again, I could spend the next 15 years just kind of plowing through Jerry's new questions. But she was one of the most wonderful human beings I've ever come across. And she, in terms of the way that she helps you to put together your own thinking, so not about other people's thinking, in terms of the ways that she will kind of poke your own thinking. She was a master or a mistress of that. So she would have to be at my dinner.
How did you know to choose Jerry?
Well, at the moment when I needed to choose somebody.
Yeah.
At the moment when I needed to choose somebody, she just I don't know, my head just said to me, I wrote a poem about the choosing of Jerry. So, and in the poem I said that God or Allah or Buddha or somebody sent me to you in that moment. And I don't know.
I think I've read that poem.
Pardon?
I think I've read that poem.
You may have read.
I remember that line.
Oh yeah.
It's me on your phone.
Oh yeah, I might have showed you that poem, but yeah, something sent me. But life does that to us, doesn't it? Life sends us where, and if we listen, life sends us where we need to go. Yeah, we just got to be brave enough to kind of follow what's calling us. So that's my two. Your third.
My third would be someone whose documentary I've recently been watching, and I've just been taken aback by how comprehensive it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is a man called Adam Curtis,
Mm-hmm.
Whose documentary on BBC called "Can't Get You Out of My Head" is the first thing I've ever watched by him. But it just really made me think what he does that I like, and I think he'd be an asset to have at the dinner table, is he's able to bring together seemingly disparate stories and just tie them together in a really interesting way. So, for example, one thing he does in the documentary is he starts by following this sort of teenager from East Asia, and you're kind of like, well, why is he telling us about this lady? And then he follows her acting career, and this lady goes on to be the wife of Chairman Mao, and that's the door he uses to sort of tell you about Chairman Mao, etc., and that big sort of world event. And I think for me that was interesting because he'd done that in so many different ways, and you begin by questioning, and then after a while you just trust him. You're like, okay, he knows what I'm doing, and I'm just going to kind of follow him on this journey. And he'd done that. He managed to do that for basically modern history. So I think someone like that at a dinner table with sort of with people that are saying different things and different ideas, to be able to sort of tie them together, or like Jerry, maybe like ask the right questions or poke and prod at the right things, I think is a good person to have, especially after watching the documentary.
So are we plating up now?
We are. So I've cut the eggs up. So I'm having them on the side, and I'm going to add the fava beans, and then also add the cut up tomato and cucumber as well. But while I do that, who's your third?
My third person would have to be CLR James. and it would have to be CLR James, because when I was about 16, I must have been 16 or 17, and I kind of began to be a bit more politicized. I went to this thing in King's Cross that I went to just because all of the kind of people in my kind of group were going. I'd not heard, I don't think, of CLR James before that. And it was called Revolution or Barbarism or Revolution, a kind of talk by CLR James. And if I'm honest, I didn't understand a lot of the talk at the time, yeah? But what I saw, and I think it was Darcus Howe and Linton Kwesi Johnson, walk this very, very fragile black man through the audience and then up onto the stage. And CLR James must have been 2,000 years old by this time. And he kind of opened his mouth and started talking. And for me, as a kind of working class black kid, it really was, it was an electric kind of moment being in that audience with all of these really, really, really very clever black people. And there were some very smart people. They were asking some very smart questions and that I didn't even understand. But just this kind of old man who just held the respect of the kind of 500 or so people that were listening to him, and then started to take apart in a way that even I could understand the idea that if we don't have socialism, if we don't have revolution, if we don't force real change, that what we're left with is barbaric and ugly and nasty. And then of course he died. And so I would love to spend an evening with CLR James and to just talk about him, to talk about that time, to talk about what he's written and what he's read, and just to kind of be in his presence. And so, yeah, that would be a strange group of people, though. Joan, I'm trading CLR James and Jerry. I mean, I just think that that'd be a really weird kind of space.
Who do you think would talk the most?
CLR James. Yeah. I think that CLR James would talk. Jerry would find questions to ask him, and Joan would start kind of writing some lyrics based on kind of what he's been saying, maybe. I don't know. I would talk.
What do you think you'd be doing in that?
I think I would be talking.
Talk.
No, I would be talking as well. Yeah. I'd be looking for somewhere where I can have a bit of a kind of intellectual battle and kind of find somebody wrong. And yeah. Wow, this is.
You say that, you know, Michael, because one thing I noticed from being on the different study trips with you is that when we're in rooms, I feel like you tend to find the perfect moments to speak. Because there'll be moments you haven't spoken for a while, and then you come out and say something, and in the same way you describe CLR Jones, everyone kind of shuts up and listens. I don't know if that's something that you feel.
Right. Okay.
Almost done.
Hey.
So I don't know if you can see.
And you'd have that with bread, would you? Or you'd need.
Yeah. So I've got. Yeah. So we have it typically with some sort of like pita bread. So I've got chapatis, which are my favorites. So yeah, usually you'd have it with bread. And there's in Sudan, one of the traditions as well, or one thing that's common there is these big plates, these sort of huge plates, and then you'll find like 7 plates on them at the same time.
Right.
And it's a very communal thing, sort of this breakfast. It's not like everyone has their own plate. It's a very communal thing. So this would be on a bigger plate, on a much larger plate, and everyone would kind of eat at the same time and eat from their side. So the final thing now to do is to just place the cucumber and tomato on the side. And we're about done. So this is
Wow.
This is the Sudanese full dish with some eggs on the side, some tomato, some cherry tomato, cucumber, and it's got some pepper in there. You probably might be able to just make it out. But and that's breakfast served about 10 hours late, but that's breakfast served.
Okay. The only problem with this online business is you don't get a chance to taste it. So I'll just have to imagine what it tastes like. The next time I see you, Saadadden, I'm going to be asking you for some. So make sure that if you're ever coming to the place where I'm coming, you've cooked it. Put some in a little plastic.
I'll make sure. I'll make sure that aligns. Yeah.
That's really.
I've asked my flatmates to try it, so they're going to try it on my behalf. And I'll let you know how. I'll make sure to let everybody know what they said.
Yeah. Maybe you could kind of put something in the chat. So listen, we've got three minutes before our hour. You kind of nailed it bang on what time you should finish the cooking and present the meal. But we have 3 minutes, so that means I've got enough time to ask you one more question. What's the best thing about being at Cambridge?
Oh, you're too good. But having the kitchen, isn't it? Having the kitchen.
Having the kitchen.
I can do this. Yeah. Having a kitchen all to myself, and getting you to ask questions like that.
Okay. Are you running from a question?
I don't know how serious it was.
No, it's a serious question. I'll tell you why it's a serious question. Because it is for many people the pinnacle of educational establishments. It's the place where, you know, if I went home and I said to my mum that my son had got into Cambridge, in fact, my nephew. No, he went to Oxford. Not even quite as good. If I went home and I said to my mum, hey, look, I'm going to Cambridge, damn, that would have meant something. And so you're there. What's the most wonderful thing about being there? It's easy to kind of ask about, you know, racism and all of that kind of stuff, but it must be great to be there. There must be some great things happening. You must be taking something really exciting from this experience.
You know, my response to that, my honest response to that question is, for me, it's difficult to disentangle my experience or the things that perhaps are mundane to Cambridge. So my response, the best thing about the people I've met, but I don't know to what extent that's got to do with Cambridge or just being in a space where people are out and about doing things they're interested in and you bump into them. And I don't know to what extent that's unique to being at Cambridge. So that's why, for me, I find it difficult to answer that question. Because...
Yeah, I suppose... Go on. Yeah, no, I suppose just that in itself, Saadadden, just being in a space where there are just lots of people doing interesting things. It's a bit like being at Ubele. I mean,
yeah.
But it is like being at Ubele. At Ubele, there's just loads of people doing interesting things and interested in challenging you in really interesting ways. And, you know, and that there are people who always want to beat you up and always want to get into a kind of tussle with you. And there are people who are kind of always doing stuff. And yeah. So I accept that answer of just kind of being in a space where people are kind of committed to doing interesting stuff. That's big in itself, yeah. Thank you, Saadadden. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
thank you for the food. Thank you for the recipe. Thank you for the ease with which it was done. I'm glad when people cook food that's easy to cook because it means I can just try it. And yeah, and thanks for all you've shared. It's been
No,
great.
thank you for sharing your story, and do send my regards to your wife and Ali as well.
Yeah, I will do. Take care.